Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson and a very special welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. Joining us this evening, we have lecturer and political commentator at the University of the West Indies, Nadine Spence. Also with us, political analyst Paul Ashley, and attorney at law and also political analyst Daniel Archer. And they're going to be talking to us about the two political leaders because Dr. Peter Phillips, just out of his first conference where he addressed the party faithful as the president of the People's National Party. So how did he do and how has he been doing since stepping into the party's top job in March? And although it's admittedly early days yet, how is he stacking up against the JLP's Prime Minister Andrew Holness? Now, before our guests speak, though, we're going to be hearing from Novia MacDonald, and because we want to talk a little bit about style and appearance, I sat down with Novia MacDonald White, Senior Associate Editor at the Jamaica Observer, to get her take on the image of both leaders. Novia, when you talk about political leaders, normally we're talking about policy, we're talking about platforms and so on. Is it completely frivolous to be talking about appearance and presentation?
Not if you're in it to win it.
Tell me what you mean.
Appearance, once upon a time, a lot of things were taken for granted also, we thought. Definitely appearance is as important as policy. If you want a buy-in, the language, your presence, how you engage, everything matters. And it's not just, the threads on your back. It's everything. So if it is frivolous, you might think so, but it certainly is not. And this is a global conversation, not just a local conversation.
Well, let's take it local then, and let me ask you to look at our two top political leaders and analyze them. So we're talking now about the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, as well as the opposition leader, Peter Phillips.
Okay, the Prime Minister, definitely, you can tell that there's an army of PR people around him. Sometimes they get it right, oftentimes they get it wrong. Why do I say this? Everything is about the suit, I get it. And I mean, my dear friend Sandra Samuels does a great job at Totally Male. But there are times when you need to be a bit more relaxed. You don't have to do the whole Obama thing, but take off your jacket, roll up your sleeves, and be less on stage, as it were. That's my personal thing. It's too much on stage. I'm on stage. This is what I'm doing. I'm counting my words. I know how I know how I'm looking, etc., etc. I know we're speaking about our leader, but who we can actually look at, who I think actually gets it right 9 out of 10 times, is our Minister of Tourism. Right, in terms of how he engages as well. There are times when he is in sneakers, when he is in a t-shirt, and when he's in a cap. Right, because you have to know how to mix it up. I find that our Prime Minister doesn't do that well. Our leader of the opposition, here's the thing. He was a former Minister of Finance. You expect, how he looks works because you expect, for want of a better word, a kind of solid, comforting kind of Joe Blow kind of person, because at the end of the day you don't want too much, because you want that feeling that the man who's watching the money is not too giddy, not too frivolous, not too out there. Of course, we've seen a whole new look, a whole new feeling, a whole new image. Have the glasses changed? Everything has changed, I think. But we kind of get it, because he's making the transition from the Minister of Finance to the leader of the opposition, and possibly to become the Prime Minister.
Stick up in there. Have the changes worked? Do they work?
Well, I think here's the thing. I mean, they don't really work, because it's the reason why they don't work is because when you take somebody who's not a fussy person and try to dress them up, you can come across as being too contrived.
Do you think these issues, the image issue, the appearance, the clothing, affect voters?
Yes and no. I think if you are engaging sophisticated voters, for want of a better word, I think how you engage, and how you engage is not just about what you wear. It's how you engage me around the table, for example. That's also important. It's how you kind of look at the landscape and fit in. I don't see anybody out on a regular basis, whether it's eating ice cream at Devon House or at Crossroads enjoying a patty, or at Moby Days over a plate of curry goat.
Would that not perhaps look contrived, and it's as if they're trying to?
You see, it's contrived. Why? Because unfortunately we don't see them doing it prior to. That's why it would come across as contrived. And if they're there with friends without the whole sea of bodyguards, enjoying themselves, paying the bill, it's not going to be contrived. If you announce to me that, okay, tomorrow at 1 o'clock I'm going to be eating a patty, of course it's contrived. And that's the whole thing. It's not just, okay, this is it now, and this is what I'm going to do. But I think leading up to the whole thing, you have to kind of, the image needs to be changed, or this is, as I said, this is where I'm going, this is how I plan to get there, and I'm not just going to wait until I, get into power before I start doing things. It's like, I'm going to go and take the JUTC bus, give me a bloody break. Please, it's just too contrived. Get up one morning when no one's expecting and everybody's going to sit back and say, oh my God, did you see who's on the bus beside me? That kind of thing.
No, when you look at both of them, does either one seem more likely to attract the attention of the younger people, the younger voters? Who has that youth attraction factor?
It's an interesting question. Why it's an interesting question is that if you look at Bernie Sanders, you wouldn't have thought that he would have attracted the youth vote, and yet he does. He really has engaged them. Again, it's not typical. It's what comes out of your mouth. So it's not a question of okay. Typically people would say obviously the Prime Minister's a younger person, so therefore okay, he would. But Dr. Peter Phillips could easily engage the young people by harking back to his youth, harking back to what he has done, putting his children beside him, that kind of thing. The Prime Minister can do it too. So it's a good conversation to be had. I wouldn't say one. I wouldn't draw either name, quite frankly, because I think that both can and both could turn off. They could turn on, and as well as they could turn off. It depends on what they're saying. And again, be authentic, be yourself.
So say you got the assignment to dress both men. You're dressing Andrew Holness. What would you put him in?
He's fine as it is. He wears the suit very well, right? I mean, when he's in a suit, I think sometimes though he needs to invest more in casual wear, and so it's just not. It doesn't come across as being too rehearsed kind of thing, Here I am, right.
And if you're dressing Peter Phillips?
I think the frumpier the better, because he's not a walking GQ, as I said, but that's it.
Frumpier the better?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong. I mean, if you're Mr. Frump, you're Mr. Frump. I think it's when you are frumpy and then you try to be who you're not. And when I say frumpy can be cool, right? Frumpy is not necessarily negative, right? Frumpy is warm and cuddly, and here I am, and I can sit down and have a conversation with you.
Well, let me show you a couple of photographs, and perhaps you can say what you think of them. I think these are the official photographs of both men. Okay,
the Prime Minister's already young, but make sure that you take his glasses off and put the contact lenses in. So it's a bit, again, it's fine, but it's a bit contrived. I think this one resonates a bit more. The glasses are still on, and that's what you expect.
Okay, here are a couple more.
Right, his glasses. You see the glasses are here now. You can see it's it's real. There's a nice smile, and it's a lot more palatable.
So your advice then would be, and we tend to see a lot of these kinds of shots. This is with Miss By, I think, who died.
Yeah, you know, and yes, you know, we're forced to carry them. But my thing is this, you know, because you know how, you know, my thing is this. Did you know her before? Were you always associated with the elderly, right? You know, do we have photos of you with your grandma, with a great aunt? Were you the type of person who would visit a senior member of your family or a friend at the weekend, carry her some rice and peas and chicken? Is that you? If it's not you, don't do it. I know you have to learn to go to every single funeral and go to all of these things, I gather. And yes, it's expected, but you know, you don't need to do that. You know, let your wife do it.
Okay, so food for thought. Well, we're going to go to the break, and then when we come back, we will be hearing from our panelists. So remember, you can tweet along with us, #TVJ All Angles. We'll be right back with the discussion.